Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Late baby boomers born between 1960 and 1965, they face a looming retirement crisis, according to the latest reports. So you'll want to stay tuned today as Philip Statler breaks down more of the risks on the horizon that could impact your confidence in retirement. We are so glad you're here with us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And Philip, looking forward to this topic today. Before we dive in, I hope you're doing great today.
Hey, doing well today. Jen, I don't know. I mean, I know that you probably don't keep up with the Sebring news, right? I mean, being out there in Topeka, Kansas and stuff. But here's the deal. We are a very special town right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have HGTV. Ben and Aaron are here working downtown in Sebring on revitalizing some of our properties.
That's pretty exciting.
It's pretty cool.
That's very
pretty
exciting.
Cool. We're excited about it. But that's the big news around here anyway.
Yeah, and that's where you get a little, you get the behind the scenes, the real inside scoop for how these shows really work. And I think that kind of lets out some of the secrets when they show up. You find out a little bit more about what really happens.
What really goes on, right?
What really goes on. That's exactly right. Always fun to get that kind of behind the scenes look at things, right?
It is.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
All right. Well, I kind of teased this a little bit, Philip, at the start of the show. Baby boomers, late baby boomers, you can call them the younger baby boomers. They're the ones born between 1960 and 1965. And I want to tell you how we're going to be referring to these baby boomers here really quickly. I got a quick audio clip that gives you a little bit of a clue. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles had it.
So you might be wondering, what does Ed Sullivan introducing the Beatles to a live studio audience in the U.S. for the first time have to do with retirees? Well, Beatlemania hit the U.S. in early 1964. That audio clip was almost exactly 60 years ago is when that happened. And here we are almost exactly 60 years later to talk about the challenges facing who we are calling the Beatlemania boomers.
Man. Yeah, it's cool that we're talking about kind of those late baby boomers because that's kind of the end, right?
Right.
That's the end of the baby boomers, and I kind of fit in that little category there, so it's kind of neat. And the USA Today, they call them the Beatlemania boomers, and they've got some different situations and some different circumstances that they're battling that the rest of the baby boomers really didn't have to go through.
Yeah.
So they got some unique challenges, and that's what we're going to talk about today is some of those economic challenges and what caused them, and what the economy was doing back during their peak earning years, because that's where the problem all started.
Yeah. It's really all about timing. We're talking about folks. They just happened to be born during this Beatlemania time, right as the Beatles were showing up. So it's just kind of a fun tie-in here. It's not really super relevant to their financial choices later on, but there is some timing involved here. These people were born in the early 60s, these Beatlemania boomers. They were in their mid to late 40s in 2008 when we were going through that financial crisis at that time. So let's talk about, how is that fact still impacting their finances today? Purely timing, just where they happen to be career-wise when these things were happening with our economy. But how is that still impacting people today?
Well, so here's the deal. If you think back to that time period, right? We're talking about 2000 into 2007 to really the beginning of 2009. You think of that time period, that economic crisis that we were in. Many of those folks in that middle management, they were in the peak of their careers. They lost their jobs. Those that didn't lose their jobs, Jen, they had to go through pay cuts. They had to be willing to take a pay cut just to keep a job. And so with all that happening, they weren't able to save as much money in their retirement accounts. A matter of fact, some of them had to actually go rob their 401ks to stay afloat during that time period. So it really put them behind the ball. And then the other thing you have to remember is that people's 401k and retirement accounts, they dropped substantially during that recessionary time period that we saw. 30, 40% wasn't unusual. And it took a while for those things to recover. And so, and some people really never fully recover from that financial setback that happened.
Yeah.
And Jen, that really rolls around to why it's important to have a plan in place, because you need to take all these things into consideration, because you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? And so when I developed the core retirement design, I put those pieces in place that allowed us to diversify not just the risk bucket, but to make sure that we're diversified between risk and safety. And so that's important when we start looking at the highs we're hitting right now as well. So folks, core retirement design, it will help you make sure that you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get your core retirement analysis started. That's 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and he is very much a Beatlemania boomer that we're talking about today. And, as we talk about these challenges for these younger baby boomers, people born at the tail end of the baby boom generation, and my parents fall into this as well, how do you help them figure out if they've saved enough for retirement? And again, when you talk about some of these challenges that they've gone through, taking a hit during their earning and savings years, this is a big concern for a lot of people. So how do you talk to people about this?
Well, it's all part of the planning process, right? So you have to know where we need to get to. It's not about what you saved. It's more about what are you going to be spending in retirement. That's the number you got to calculate. How much do we need to produce income? What kind of income do we need to produce when you take into consideration your Social Security that you're going to get, your pension that maybe you get? What's the shortfall? And it's that shortfall that we have to plan for, and we have to fill that gap, that income gap. And that's, again, what our core retirement design help folk do, is to put together that income plan that makes them really have that certainty about knowing that they can retire. Man, I was having a meeting last week with a client that, they were just uncertain, about how much income they're going to have in retirement. And we built out the income plan and said, look, here's where you are. You're going to be fine in retirement. Even if you don't pull money out of your accounts, just your Social Security and your pension, you're going to be good. That certainty helps people, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you talk about things like certainty versus uncertainty, a big concern for a lot of people is you think about those of us who, everyone lived through 2008 and everybody knows what that felt like to see some of those losses and have some of those concerns about the economy. If something like that were to happen again, talk about something that people are concerned about and feel uncertain about. What are some strategies to consider to help preserve our savings if we're worried about that, another worst case scenario in the markets?
Well, and I think we have to be concerned about that given what we're seeing in today's marketplace. And so the first thing I look at folks and say, look, we need to make sure that you've got the right diversification between how much should be in your risk bucket versus how much should be in your principal preservation bucket. And that really boils down to how close are you to retirement. The closer you are to retirement, the more we need to be in that principal protection mode, because we can't afford to have another 2008 come and kind of clean us out before we get ready to retire. And so it is really making sure that we're using that right diversification and then using the right tools we have for that diversification. And that really is the core retirement design, where we look at the risk component of everybody's portfolio to make sure it lines up with the amount of risk they should have in their portfolio, Jen. The closer you get to retirement, the more safe or less risky their portfolio needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just talk a little bit about your process for helping create a comprehensive retirement plan and exploring things like how much risk do we have with our retirement savings. Talk a little bit about what this looks like.
So for us, it's really and truly a 3-step process. One is we want to know where you are right now. And you should know where you are right now, right? In terms of risk, how much risk is in your current portfolio? And then how does that measure up with how much risk you should have in your portfolio based on your age, based on your risk tolerance, and how close you are to retirement? Those are important parts of that. The second thing we look at is taxes in retirement. You know, everybody thinks that taxes kind of go away when they retire. And unfortunately, that's not the case. You know, a lot of people end up paying more taxes in retirement than they anticipated because they didn't have the right strategies in place. That's another area we focus on to make sure that we're doing all we can that folks pay the least amount of taxes in retirement. And then lastly, the third prong of our core retirement design is to design that retirement income plan so they know where the income's coming from month in and month out, and they can sleep better at night because they understand what that looks like for them.
So as we talk a little bit about this, let's just talk about how we can get started, Philip. If we are saying, okay, I have some assets for retirement, I have some things in place, but I don't really think I have this comprehensive plan. I don't really think I have that certainty with my finances that a plan can bring. Let's talk about how we get started.
It starts with a 30-minute phone call. You know, where folks can sit there and ask questions to make sure that they're on the path they need to be on in order to get to where they want to be in retirement. It's that simple. It's a 30-minute phone call. And there's no cost, no obligation. If we get through that 30 minutes, you say, hey, Philip, thanks. I think I'm good. You know, that's all well and good. You know, the process is I want to make sure that people that are listening to the radio show are on the right path for the retirement they always dreamed of. If I can help, great. If not, hey, I'll let you know you're on the right path. Just keep doing what you're doing. To get started, it takes one phone call, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give us a call and let's get started on your core retirement design.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and we've got a lot more insights from Philip coming up next. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. Philip is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and Philip knows very well that it's a lot easier to get a job done if you have the right tools. And we want to help you understand that the financial tools you need for retirement are a little different from what you used during your working years. We want to talk about that and help you pack your retirement toolkit. And Philip, I mean, you know what I'm talking about here, right? When you're trying to get something done around the house, for example, and you don't have the right tools to finish the project. I mean, it's a mess. Has this ever happened to you?
So I'm going to talk about two things right here.
Okay.
One is a simple one, right? My truck.
Yes.
Not the house, but truck. I wanted to put change the front plate on my truck, right? It had a FSU tag there. I wanted to take it off, put my new one on. And I went down there and I thought it was an Allen wrench, a simple Allen wrench. I went and got my Allen wrenches. None of them would fit. And I looked at it and says, well, it don't even look like an Allen wrench. And so I went to the store and I got something else that looked like that's what it was. Came back, tried that. It was the wrong tool again. So I ended up taking it to the dealership just to get my license plate changed because I couldn't figure out what tool I needed to fix the goddamn thing. So it's that's one of those things. The other one that really sits in the back of my head, and I try not to remember this one too much, is I decided to remodel my bathroom by myself.
Oh, how'd that go?
I know you and I don't know each other very, very well, but I'm not a handy person at all. I made a lot of trips to the hardware store to get stuff that I didn't have and needed for that project. So, and it's frustrating, right? When you get in those situations.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, you think about some of these situations you've been in. If you had a hammer, there are some things that you could technically get done, maybe not well, than if you needed a wrench and maybe try to just knock the thing off with a hammer. It could have gotten the job done, but maybe a little bit messier. So I think that kind of brings in our point
Jim,
here.
The other thing that just hit me is that the biggest frustration is not knowing what tool I needed.
Yeah.
Especially trying to change the daggum license plate, right? I didn't know what tool I needed.
Right.
And so I had to take it to the dealership to get a simple license plate changed.
Yeah, it's so, you're exactly right. It is so frustrating when you just can't figure out what it is that you need. And I think that is a perfect segue into talking about these financial tools, trying to figure out exactly what the financial tools that we need, what those things are. And if you do a search for retirement tools, I did this, you get millions of search results. So there is a lot to search through. I mean, Philip, you think about your frustration trying to find the right wrench. Now there's millions of hits and you're trying to sort through this. One of them that I found that I thought was kind of interesting was from the Department of Labor. It was a federal government called a retirement toolkit, this PDF that you could download. And I looked through it, and it had some resources about Social Security. It had some articles about Medicare, and then it had a couple things about the basics of retirement savings plans. So that was in the federal government's little retirement toolkit: Social Security, Medicare, and retirement savings plans. What would you say might be missing from that list? What else would you say needs to be in our retirement toolkit?
You know, I looked at that list, and there's a lot of missing stuff in that list. I mean, I think the timeline that they put in that article is good. I mean, when you should start doing certain things. Okay. Outside of that, it doesn't give you really and truly any strategies or investment tools that you can use. I think the biggest thing is what tools do I need? And I'll just tell you that, you know, if you go to certain people, you're going to get their tools that are available to them, and they don't have any access to any other tools. Okay. You know, like when you go to Ford, you know, you're going to get Ford dealership, you know, they're going to use Ford parts. They're going to do all that stuff. It's going to be specific to them. And so where if you went to a regular mechanic outside of the dealership, they're going to pick and choose whatever is going to work the best and maybe save you some money too, right, on the parts they buy. Right. And it's the same thing in the financial world. You know, not everybody has access to all the same tools. out there. Being an independent advisor, we have access to all the tools to put together the retirement plan that's going to be there and it's going to be needed. And so I think that's the key. And part of that whole key is risk. How much risk do you have in your portfolio? What tools are you using to mitigate some of that risk? And if you don't know, that's where we come in.
Yeah.
That's why we developed the financial x-ray. Part of that financial x-ray is to help you determine, number one, what is the amount of risk that's appropriate for you? Number two, how much risk do you have in your current portfolio? If you don't know the answers to those two questions on a scale of 1 to 100, you need to give us a call. It's that simple. The number to call is 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Give us a call and let us help you find out how much risk you have in your portfolio and make sure that it's the right amount of risk for you personally. And that's what we do at Statler Financial. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, talking about our retirement toolkit, because it is frustrating when you think about that idea of trying to accomplish something and not having the right tools. This is frustrating when we think about a car repair project or a home improvement project. It's also really frustrating to think about when it comes to our financial goals. And I think that's part of it as well, Philip. Sometimes we don't understand that certain tools are going to be used in certain ways, right? So if we are looking for growth and we have an annuity, we might be very frustrated and saying, well, this is not a good tool, but we're not using it the right way. So how do we get some help matching up the right tools for the goals, for the job that we're trying to accomplish?
And Jim, that's a good point, because I have to remind clients of that all the time, is that, they're disappointed in the earnings of an annuity, or they're disappointed because of the ups and downs of the marketplace. And so we have to remind that, hey, everything that we do has a specific job and a specific task in place. That's one reason that we run through that risk analysis, right? Because we want to know what tools we should be selecting from. And that risk analysis really gives us that different options of what tools would work best in your circumstances. And so whether we need a lot of income, whether we need more safety because, you don't want a lot of risk in your portfolio, all these things will help determine what tools we are going to use, whether that's an annuity, whether that's a real estate investment trust, whether that's just mutual funds and stocks. We don't know until we sit down and put together a plan. Anybody that just puts you in an investment without having a plan in place, that is problematic from the beginning, Jim.
Right. So let's say, Philip, that our goal is generating income. That's the job that we are trying to get done with our money. What are some of the tools that we might use for that?
So there's a vast array, right? So there's CDs, right, and other safe investments. Now there's problems with that, right? Because they don't pay anything. We're not going to really generate much income.
Right.
We're going to use our principal. You can use a laddered bond portfolio using the interest from the bonds and just put them on a short-term laddering schedule, 3 to 5 years. You're going to ladder them out. You could look at a stock dividend portfolio, a portfolio that has specifically put together to generate dividends, and those dividends get paid out to folks. High yield bonds, high yield corporate debt, systematic withdrawals from a balanced portfolio. Now, I see that one a lot. I will tell you that it can cause people some headaches because of the ups and downs in the market while they're taking money out of that portfolio.
Okay.
Not the best strategy that I've seen. There's an immediate annuity. You put money in, you're going to get a lifetime income. Variable annuities with some kind of guaranteed income feature will create that income that you may need. And then a holistic retirement asset allocation plan, which lends itself to putting together a portfolio that's very well diversified. And so you know where the money's coming from each and every month. And then for us, we like the bucket approach, right? It's kind of like the holistic retirement asset allocation plan, but we use money in buckets or silos, and that's worked well for our clients.
Okay, so those are some ideas for income. Let's talk about if our goal is growth. That now we're looking at some different tools. What are some of the things that we might think about there?
So here we look at things like stocks, right? Stock market,
Mm-hmm.
having a diversified portfolio of growth stocks, using a mutual fund that you have somebody that's doing those allocations for you, using an ETF, using a real estate investment trust will give you maybe some growth. It's more towards income, but it is a possibility to give us kind of an in-between growth and income. As well as an indexed annuity will give you kind of both, right? It'll give you some expectations for growth, but could also be used for the income side. And with any type of a tool that you use, they all have different things. Stock market, you have the risk of ups and downs. Annuities, you have surrender charges and liquidation requirements. You can only take out so much a year. So there's different things with each of these tools that we need to understand and know that we're using those tools because of what they'll do and how they'll do it.
Right. And that's, again, your process for helping us put those tools into place in the right way. It's called the Financial X-ray Report. And you do things like help us find the right balance between growth and safety, putting the right money in growth versus income. That's what your whole process is all about.
That's right. So the whole thing about creating that financial x-ray is one, is to make you aware of where you currently stand in relationship to your portfolio and how much risk it has. The second part of that is, how can we take that portfolio and minimize the risk so that it's appropriate for you? And there's several ways that we do that. And it all depends on what that number looks like for you. To find out what your number is, between 1 and 100, give us a call, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. And let's get started with your financial x-ray, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services here in Sebring. Philip is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year, talking with me today about packing our retirement toolkit. There are so many financial tools out there. It seems like there should be a solution for just about every problem. But here's one of the issues that we have. First of all, Philip, and we talked about this earlier, if you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Here's the other thing. Sometimes we have an emotional reaction to certain tools or products. We reject them based on what we've heard or what we assume. And we don't do this with physical tools, Philip. Nobody says, oh, I don't like screwdrivers, so I'm never going to use one in anything ever. But we do this with money. Talk about that and why that's a dangerous line of thinking.
Well, you're right. They do. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with folks and we run the risk analysis and they need more safety. And we start talking about annuities and indexed annuities and all of a sudden you see the whites of their eyes light up and say, oh, no, we can't do that.
Right.
Why can't you? Do you know, have you used them before? Oh, no. But my brother-in-law told me, it's terrible. We should never use those. Well, it's a tool. And if used properly in the right circumstances, will do you justice in your portfolio. I get the flip side of that, right? I sit down with folks and usually that person I say the annuity word to, they've got everything in stocks and mutual funds.
Yikes.
Now take the next person, we run their risk analysis number and they have all their money sitting in CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And they need more risk. We need to look at, for you, a very conservative tactical portfolio. Oh, no. We're not going to go in the stock market. So because all they've seen, all they've heard is bad things. Mm-hmm. Right. They don't look at, they do hear about their, the guy on the golf course that said he made 100%, but he stretched, it was like a fishing story. Right. So, but that's the problem is people look at those tools and those tools used properly will give you the results that you need. And I have to say, look, you're hiring a professional, right? If you went to a contractor and said, look, I need you to build my house, but I'm against you beating nails with a hammer. You can't use a hammer.
Doesn't make sense.
How are they going to build your house?
Right.
They can't. You got to look at all the tools and what they're designed to do. And as long as they're using them for what they're designed to do, that's what you should use them for.
Right. And you know what? I like that word that you used a few moments ago when you said we need to get tactical here. That's an important part of this. We don't want to be just randomly picking and choosing where we're going to put our money, going through and just clicking on different places online and saying, okay, I'll try some here, and some here. We need to be tactical with this. That's what helps us make sure our money's going to last. I just want to clue in on that word for just a second because I think that's an important word that you used.
Well, that's true. And so I've learned a long time ago because I've lived through 2 major bear markets, right?
Yeah.
And what I learned in those bear markets is that, hey, having that pretty pie chart asset allocation, it didn't work. It didn't work in 2000 or 2008. If you were in that pie chart in a conservative portfolio, you still lost money.
Yeah.
And so that taught me that you need a well-devised tactical portfolio that does look at the economic situation. It looks at how high the stock market is getting. It looks at all these other factors to build its portfolio. And it's different than just buy and hold.
Right.
Just being tactical means, hey, there may be times that we make wholesale changes in that portfolio. And there may be times that we don't make any changes. There may be times that we take risk off the table so we don't have as much risk in that portfolio. Versus buy and hold, you don't make any changes. Maybe once a year you come in and do a little bit of change here or there. It's just a different mindset. Mm-hmm. And over the years, my experience has taught me that tactical has worked better over time.
Right. So let me just put that out there. If you have been working with somebody and that word tactical strategy, if you don't think those things are being addressed in a way that makes sense for you, or if you don't feel like there has been a change in those strategies, in those tactics after you got into retirement, 863-285-3815 is the way to reach Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services. That's 863-285-3815. And also, Philip, we can go to your website and get on the calendar as well, right? StatlerFinancial.com.
That's right. You can go to statlerfinancial.com, and there is a calendar link there that you can get to my calendar. And again, the number is 863-285-3815 to schedule a time just to sit down and analyze your portfolio. Because the other part of that, Jen, is have you had any changes made in your portfolio at all in the last year? If not, you're not in a tactical portfolio.
Great point. Great point. Again, 863-285-3815. And if you'd like to just put yourself on Philip's calendar, go to statlerfinancial.com and you can do that there as well. statlerfinancial.com. As we're talking about this retirement toolkit, Philip, another financial tool that's out there is life insurance. And this is one of those things, I have a young family. I have 4 kids. We still have a mortgage. So obviously life insurance is a part of my financial plan, what my husband and I have. We have life insurance for the kids. How could that potentially fit into a retirement toolkit, though?
Well, that's a good point. So most people think they get to retirement, they don't need life insurance anymore. And some people stay away from permanent life insurance because they only want it for a certain period of time. And I understand all those different theories and different philosophies around life insurance. But there's 2 areas that I think life insurance, if started early enough, now that it could make some sense. One is that a permanent life insurance policy started young enough and funded on a well-balanced plan could create income in retirement.
Okay.
If planned properly and done right, it could being the primary word there, produce some income in retirement. The other important aspect of it is that most life insurance policies today will have a couple different riders associated with it. They'll have a long-term care rider sometimes, but most of them have a terminal illness rider. And the terminal illness rider says, "Babe, look, if a doctor says I'm going to die sometime in the next 12 months, then you can have access to some of that death benefit."
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that becomes important. And for those that have a long-term care rider, then that life insurance policy could double as a partial, not a full, long-term care benefit for you. And every policy is different. You need to understand exactly what you have to see what benefits are available for you down the road. But that is a possibility. It could be there for that issue if you have the right type of permanent policy.
Right. And it's interesting when you talk about some of those options, some of those riders, some of those things available on life insurance policies today, on some of them that perhaps weren't there, years and years ago. What about things like long-term care? That is we have some different tools and solutions to deal with that. We used to have these traditional standalone long-term care policies, but you were just talking to some of the options potentially with long-term care. So a lot of the tools that we have today are different for today's retirees. You need to keep that in mind if you're getting some advice from your father-in-law or your aunt or your neighbor, right? The tools that we have today might be different from what they were using.
That's right. If you have a policy, if you have a policy that you had 20, 25 years ago, it may not have any of this stuff in it. So it may make sense to say, okay, what's out there today? Can I take what I have and put it into something new? Maybe, maybe not, but it may be worth that discussion, Jen, to find out if that would put you in a better place financially going forward.
So, Philip, let's talk about how you help somebody find the right combination of tools for a comprehensive strategy, how you help them figure out what needs to be in income, what needs to be in growth, what are the concerns that we need to address as it relates to things like long-term care and healthcare. How do you help somebody build that comprehensive strategy that's going to handle all these different aspects?
So that's a good question, Jen, and it boils down to a couple different things. One is the financial x-ray, where we determine, based on that, how much risk you can tolerate within your portfolio. Second, we're going to look at what we call the rule of 100. And that is going to say, hey, we're going to take 100 minus your age, and that's going to give us some idea of how much you should have risk in your portfolio. Is it exact science? No. That number gets tweaked plus or minus depending on your current circumstances. But that's the second way we look at risk. And the third thing we do is we build a financial income plan, a retirement income plan that's written down for you. And that retirement income plan, like I said in the past, we use a bucket approach. So we're going to use a bucket, and certain buckets are going to last certain amounts of time. And over time, it's going to grow and still provide you the income you're going to need. And so based on that plan that we put together, then we look and see what tool do we need for each of those buckets. And that could be drastically different for you than it is for my grandmother. It's going to be different. So it's not one size fits all. It's going to depend upon the person, how much income they need, how much risk they can tolerate, as to which tools we're going to use. But we're going to walk through a process to get to the answer to that question. And if you don't have a written retirement income plan, that could be an issue, right? How do you know what tools to put in place if you don't have a plan in place? Give us a call and let us help you determine, one, how much risk you have, two, what that income plan needs to look for you, and what the right tools are to put into that plan. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. I'd love to sit down with you and coach you into and through retirement. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Statler Financial Mailbag.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services here in Sebring. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. And Philip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. So we're going to open up our mailbag. We're going to go over some common retirement questions. We have a really good collection of questions. We figure you probably have some pretty similar questions as well. So hopefully you'll learn a little something from these folks who have some of these questions. And Philip, let's get into it. first question comes from Gary, who is from Wauchula, who's been looking forward to retirement for years, but now that he's less than 2 years away from his target retirement date, he's starting to panic a little bit. And Gary wants to know if this is normal. Do other people get cold feet about retirement? How do I shake this off so I can enjoy myself? Boy, isn't that the way?
Yeah, Gary, that's it's not unusual to have that happen. I mean, I get people that the closer they get, the more real it becomes, the more nervous they get, and we have to just sit down and reassure them that that's why we have a plan in place. That's why we've done the planning. We've done the hard work to make sure that everything's going to, plan the way that we've got it put in the plan. And so, that's what it is. Now, I'll just tell you that I have some folks that, as the closer they get, because they didn't actually write it down, they do keep pushing it back a little bit. And finally, though, something happens and they say, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to retire. Mm-hmm. And they get that relief once they make that decision to, okay, this is my last day, and move forward because they have a plan in place, so they know where their income's coming from and how that's going to flow. Mm-hmm. The other case, just for an example, I have a couple of clients that, we put together the plan, and they've come in and said, you know what? I'm not going to make it to that date. I'm retiring.
We're done. We're out of here.
We're done. And that's why we have a plan, because that plan takes those things into consideration. And we know, hey, if we decide to retire a little early, this is what we're going to do. Plop that plan into place, and we're ready to go.
Well, and I get cold feet. I get even when we're going on a vacation, right before I get on the plane, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. Why am I even messing with this? I don't even know if I planned it well enough. And then I have a great time when I go. I mean, I think we get cold feet so many times with so many little things. So, of course, with something as big as your retirement, I can't take a vacation without wanting to back out at the last minute.
It's change, right? We don't like change. And so that's a change in our whole situation. So that's obviously going to
makes perfect sense.
Some issue. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Great question, though, Gary. We appreciate you sending that in. Next up is Patrick from Lake Placid, who has some friends who are struggling. This other couple that they know, the husband was in a debilitating car wreck, and they were not prepared to live on the wife's paycheck. They still don't know if this friend is going to recover enough to work again, but this has Patrick and his wife wanting to make sure that they would be okay if something similar happens to one of them. They just want to know, how do they make sure? Where do they get started?
So a couple of things I would say there, because that's there's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
I think you start with preparing a net worth statement for yourself right now and determining, how much do you have on the liability side? And then let's look at the income. Where's the income coming from? And this is a case where we don't think about it, and we probably don't talk about it much on the show at all, really, is disability insurance.
Yeah.
This is where things like having a disability can pay off, and kind of like long-term care insurance. We don't want to think about it, but it's out there. It's something we need to be planning for. And this is no different. We need to have a plan in place, whether that's having enough assets to survive. And how do I look at it? I look at it this way. We build our plans so that we could cut off one person's income and say, okay, how would that work? What would happen? What ifs?
Yeah.
Right. We can walk through some of those scenarios and determine, what's going to happen. What are we going to have to do to make sure that we could survive? And that's just part of the process.
Right. And those are tough things to think about. But the reality is, Philip, none of us is promised tomorrow. And I think we all know someone, or we've experienced ourselves, where everything changes in the blink of an eye. One phone call and everything that you thought you had planned is different. And we just have to face that fact, which isn't a lot of fun sometimes, but gosh, how much better is it to have the money side taken care of if you do have one of these catastrophic incidents, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, not just that, but I mean, you have a spouse that passes away.
Yeah.
That's so, that changes the dynamic totally. And what do we do? How do we do that? That's why, we build out ours plans so that we can do what ifs. Okay, what if John dies in year 5 of retirement? What's going to happen? And I think that's important.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do one more. Beth, also here in Sebring. Beth's oldest daughter is looking at some college loans, and she has asked about co-signing. Would like mom and dad to co-sign. What are some things to consider before Beth signs on the dotted line?
Yeah, I have a lot of caution to kind of throw out there for this question, Jen, as I look at that. Beth, don't just think twice, think 3 or 4 times before doing that. I unfortunately have some real life experience with this issue. I've had grandchildren that had grandparents co-sign on loans, student loans, and they got, the degree they were seeking at a private school, which was astronomically expensive. She wasn't going to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year, and when she graduated, she had $150,000 in student loans. So things like that are concerning to me. So number one, I would never ever recommend co-signing on a student loan. There's other avenues out there. I mean, it's just you get to a point and you have to look out for your retirement. And don't get me wrong, I understand. It's your kid. We want to get them through college. But a lot of times I see kids that they're going to a school that's expensive. They don't know what they want to do.
Taking that meandering route to their major.
Yeah. or they pick a job that isn't going to make $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of an article I read not too long ago about Columbia University, that high-priced school. Kids are graduating there with music degrees and social service degrees with $200,000 of student loan debt.
Gosh.
And the most they're ever going to make in the jobs they've chosen is $50,000 a year.
Gosh, how do you do that? Oh,
you can't. It's just problematic. That's a whole nother issue that we're dealing with in our country. Bottom line is that you've got to stay true to your goals of getting to retirement, and not to say that they would default, but statistically speaking, in today's world, student loans are just a problem, and you don't want your assets hanging on the line for that student loan debt. So I would just caution you to stay away from that and focus on your retirement. That's what's going to be important to you down the road. Folks, listen, there's a lot of questions that we can answer. There's a lot of things that go into planning for your retirement. But it really and truly starts with risk. Knowing the risk you have in your portfolio, knowing the risk to your income that you might have out there. It's all about risk and making sure that you don't have too much as you head into retirement. Let me help answer those questions for you. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give us a call, schedule your financial x-ray, and let us stress test your current portfolio. 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. That's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip. I'm Jen Rezac. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.